Hello guys, my name is Amara Okonkwo. I'm the lead coach for IELTS and Bibles NG. And today's course, we're going to be talking about the writing task 1, the academics writing task 1. So we're going to go through the course outline. First of all, there are basic things that you need to know about the academic writing task 1. And then we're going to talk about things to consider before you begin your writing task 1. I call it report writing. Then we're going to teach you how to write your introduction. We're going to teach you how to write what is called an overview, and then we'll teach you how to write your 2 body paragraphs. As we go through the different sections, you get to understand why we are talking about 2 body paragraphs, we're talking about an overview and then an introduction. So let's begin right away. Now, basic information about the academic writing task 1. You basically have 20 minutes for this task, and a minimum of, you are required to write a minimum of 150 words. You are actually given an instruction in this particular task. You'll be given an instruction to select and report the main features on a diagram. It could be a diagram, it could be a map, it could be a table, pie chart, bar chart, line graph, etc. So information will be given on this different types of data sets. You understand? All these items are just different ways to represent data. So information will be given on them, and then you'll be asked to select the key features or the main features and make comparisons between similar data sets. Now, it will give you like 30% of your total writing score. You know, the writing part of the IELTS test is split into 2 tasks, the task 1 and then the task 2. So this writing task 1 will be giving you 30% of your total scores. So if you compare task 1 and task 2, you know that task 2 actually gives you like the major portion of your score. But both tasks are very, very important, because if you know how to write the 2 of them, your scores would benefit from that. Let's move on. Now, things to consider before you begin your academic writing task 1. I call it the report writing. So I think that's what I'm calling it from now on. Remember, I have 20 minutes. You said that in previous slides. You have 20 minutes to write this task. So you see that it's shorter than 40 minutes. That's 40 minutes I dedicated to your task 2. You see that it's shorter, and then minimum of 150 words. I like to begin my classes. Whenever I have a student, I like to teach them how to write the task 2 first. When they've mastered that, then I introduce them to the task 1. Because by the time they've mastered how to do the difficult one, which is the task 2, seeing that it's longer, you have more requirements, 250 words, and you are given 40 minutes to write it. So if you've mastered that, the task 1 becomes very easier for you. Like, it becomes very easy for you because it looks more straight to the point, seeing that you have a shorter time to work with, and then you have shorter word count to present. And now, the criteria that is used in the marking scheme to access your report writing, there are task achievement, that is how well you answer the question, and then grammatical range, coherence and cohesion, and then lexical resource. So you need to, before you begin, you need to understand and analyze the question given. You need to read and make sure that you understand. It's not just about hurrying up to start writing because you just have 20 minutes. I tell you, it's better you dedicate 3 to 5 minutes to understanding the question before you start writing. So once you understand the question, go on to make your plan, more like have an idea of the key features that you want to talk about from the information that you're seeing on the graph or diagram. Then paraphrasing is very important. But remember, it's not limited to synonyms. So it's not just about swapping words, changing words to their synonyms. No, it's not just about that. You need to understand what you're talking about. Once you understand what the information is all about, then it becomes easier for you. Now you realize that there are some words that do not have synonyms or cannot be paraphrased. Please, when you see words like that, write them the same way, write them just the same. There's no issue with that. There's no problem with that. You understand? So avoid picking up words that mean something entirely different. Do you understand? Instead of using another word that means something else, you would rather repeat the same word. If there's no synonyms or there's no way to paraphrase it, please write that same word. Understand? Then the structure. We're going to look at the structure of your report writing. So this is the standard structure that works for a report. This is the standard structure for your writing task 1. Please do not do anything different from this. Do not do anything different from this. It must have an introduction, an overview, then 2 body paragraphs. Finish. You understand? It is quite straight to the point, very clear. Introduction, what does it mean? Your introduction is actually a paraphrase or a writing of the title of whatever that was given to you. Now, take note of the units or the years indicated, or a country. Maybe they said it's the number of people that migrated to Australia from 2009 to 2019. You understand? So take note of the years, take note of the countries. Okay, let me say, okay, ensure the years or period of time is indicated. Or any other unit. Okay, let me leave it this way. But just know that if a country was mentioned, please mention that country, understand? Take note of these details. So when you are paraphrasing the title, when you're writing it, indicate these things, indicate them in your title, in your introduction rather. Now, overview. The overview is actually a summary of the whole information. Now, since the information, the prompts that is usually given to you, the prompt is to select the key features. Let's look at that here. I think we mentioned it here. So the prompt is usually for you to select and report main features and make comparisons if need be. Now, that is where your focus should be. When you see a diagram, a table, a chart, whatever that is given, please ensure that you just focus on the key features, the main features. When we say main features, we're referring to highest, lowest, biggest, or the ones that are similar. You understand? So you don't need to report every single thing in the data set that you are seeing. There's no need for that. Just focus on the key, the ones that are very obvious, you understand? Are you seeing a decline? Are you seeing an increase? Are you seeing stability? So whatever you are noticing that is very obvious, those are the things that you should talk about. Now, there's no conclusion in report writing. That's why you see that the structure just consists of these 4 paragraphs: the introduction, overview, and then 2 body paragraphs. So any summary you are doing in this report writing is actually done in the overview. Now let's go ahead to learn how to write these different parts. I also did, this slide is similar with the previous one. The only difference is that I then indicated what's the body paragraphs, what's the should include. The body paragraph clearly indicates the detail here, comparing and contrasting, you understand? So when we say details, we're talking of figures. The overview is a summary, so it shouldn't contain, see what I wrote here, no figures, numbers, or details should be added here. Just give us a summary. Don't mention any number or size or percentage or weight, depending on whatever unit that is mentioned in the data sets. You do not need to mention any of that in your overview. So it is now in your body paragraph that you can now go ahead to mention figures and other details. So let's go through this structure again, because I just did a bit of I added additional information here. So as I said earlier on, your introduction is paraphrase of the title, describing what the diagram shows briefly. So I've given you like 2 explanations to I've given you 2 explanations on what your introduction means. We've said that it is a paraphrasing or writing of the title that was given. You understand? We've said it here in this previous slide. We said to paraphrase or rewrite paraphrasing or writing. Paraphrasing or writing of the title which was given, Then we were given additional information here. Paraphrase of title describing what the diagram shows briefly, you understand? So it's just look at the title, look at the information that is given in the diagram or charts, and just rewrite it. That is just the introduction. So this should be like 2 or 3 lines, and you have your introduction. Then overview again is a summary of the main features, the obvious patterns that you can see. See a summary of the key trends, patterns, or striking information. You understand? Then no figures, numbers, or details should be added. So we shouldn't see any number or units in your overview. Then your body paragraph, you are now free to add details in your body paragraphs. So let's move on. So then, first off, we're going to learn how to write an introduction. I know we've explained this. Now we're getting practical. We're taking it practical step by step. Now, writing your introduction is very easy, as we said. Simply rewrite the title in your own words. We are using this question here as a sample. The question reads, the pie chart shows the amounts of money that a children's charity located in the USA spent and received in 1 year, 2016. Then the prompt is, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. Now, if you follow the formula and the tips and strategies that I'll give you here, if you follow it clearly, you would see that you should be getting an average of 160 words. I tell you, it's very easy. I know by now you've seen the video of how to write your essays. You've mastered how to write essays. So now this should be very easy for you if you follow the methods, the formulas I'm going to give to you. You see that it's quite easy and straight to the point. Now, let's briefly, before you begin, as I said, make your plan, have an understanding. Now, they've told us that, okay, charity organization in 2016, that this is the total amount of money that they received, and then the amount of money that they spent. The pie charts, you see that there are 2 pie charts here. One pie chart shows the different, how the money, the total amount of money, different ways they were able to source it, how they sourced their revenue. Understand? Then how they spent. The second pie chart shows how the expenditures were made, what they spent it on. Now, if you look here, it's very obvious that donated foods took, as in they actually got donations. They got a major part of their revenue from donated foods. You can see that it's 86.6%. So it's very obvious that, oh, majority of their revenue was gotten from this particular food donation. So it's very obvious. Then for the expenditures, you can clearly see that, 95, this should be 95% or so, 95.8% of the money, of their whole money was spent on program services. So it's very clear. These are obvious things. Then the rest was on fundraising, management, and general activities, 1.8%. So these are obvious features. These 2, the largest sums, the largest source of funds, the largest portion spent. It's very obvious where they spent it and where they got the money from. Now, that's all we just did here, was just to understand the information that we're given. So now we understand the information that's been given. Now let's look at how to write our introduction. Remember, the introduction is just to write the title. What's the title? The title is actually this one here in the question. And when you're looking at what is given in the question, also look at the title of the diagram here. So it says here, revenue sources and expenditures of a USA charity in 1 year, 2016. Now, I would want you to go ahead and write your own introduction in your own words. Aside from the one I have here, I want you to go ahead and rewrite it, you understand? Write your introduction yourself. Then I can easily say the two pie charts gives information on the total funds received and their sources and how they were spent by a children's charity organization in 2016. See how I paraphrased? I added organization here. I said the two pie chart gives information. You can also say illustrates. You can also say shows. You understand? These are ways you can put this, how you can paraphrase. You can say the pie chart shows, the pie chart gives information, the pie chart illustrates. So these are three ways in which you can say the same thing. Then take note of the fact that I mentioned the year. And then I think there's one thing missing here right now. In this introduction, can you tell me what do you think is missing? A particular information that is missing here. So if you look at it closely, compare it with what we have in the title, you see that I omitted USA here. So let's add it. Say the two pie charts gives information on the total funds received and their sources and how they were spent by children, the children's charity organization in the USA. We say in the USA. In the USA in 2016. You understand? In the USA in 2016. So this is what I was saying. When you're writing your introduction, make sure you mention the details, the particular details involved. So this is how to write your introduction. Very simple, very easy and straight to the point. Let's go on. Let's learn how to write the overview. Now, I said overview is a summary of the information. Summary of the information. The key features that you can see. I know grammatically speaking also, this word spendings doesn't look correct, but in terms of economics or statistics, is a word that can be used. Is a word that can be used. So I'm going to leave it like that. But if you choose not to use it, that's fine. You can decide to use expenses or amounts spent. See, now, before we started writing, remember we talked about what we can see in the two pie charts. So whenever I want to begin your overview, you need to begin with this word overall. Please, this is compulsory. There's no other option actually for the report writing, your academic writing task 1. You must begin this word with overall when you want to begin the second paragraph, which is your overview. So begin with the word overall. A significant portion of the revenue was generated via food donations, as we can see rather. A reasonable proportion, this committee and contribution, you can see that it is, I think this should be 16.5%. So it's also a reasonable portion, you understand? A reasonable proportion was raised through community contributions, and a relatively small percentage was gotten from program revenues and others. So I just lumped all these ones together. Instead of mentioning every single one of them, I just said that, okay, a relatively small percentage was gotten from program revenues and others. I lumped them all together. So because it's actually a summary, you understand, it's an overview. We need not to mention every single detail. Then, all these things, we are just from the beginning to this point, we're just talking about revenue. Now, we want to talk about the spendings. Remember, we are just talking about the striking or obvious features. So I just said spendings were mostly on program services. I just talked about this one. And yes, when you look at the information, you see that majority was spent on program service, and that's all I said. Now let's move on to the body paragraph. But before we go on, there's something I want to point out to you. You know, when we're talking about a pie chart, look at the way the unit of measurement. If you look at it, you know that the unit of measurement is in percentages. So when I'm referring to things in percentages, you know you have to use words like rate, portion, and proportion, you understand, percentage. So that's why I used this word reasonable proportion. I used reasonable, relatively small percentage. I used portion. So these are words you can use to relate with percentage. You can use things like rates, proportion, percentage, portion. You can also use fraction because they've been measured in percentages and not unit amounts. They were not measured like in monetary values. It was only the total sums that were in monetary values. And we are not within, because we are not to mention figures in our overview. So we didn't even mention them here. Understand? Now, let's move on. Now, this is interesting parts, the body paragraphs. Remember, I told you, I just talking about whatever information that are being given to report on. You can as well logically split the features you want to talk about between the two body paragraphs. Now that we are talking about two pie charts, it's very easy to decide to talk about the revenue in one body paragraph and then talk about the expenditures in the second body paragraph. Now, someone else can choose to split these main features in their own way. So whatever way that is comfortable for you to split the features so that it becomes easier for you to talk about, please go ahead and work with it that way. Now, if you look at my overview, you'd see that I first of all talked about the revenue, and then I talked about the spending. So if you now want to talk about the body paragraph, you can decide to dedicate to flesh out the first part you talked about in your overview for the first body paragraph, and then flesh out the second part in your second body paragraph. So it's very logical. So in whatever form you summarize the information in your overview, you can then go on to your body paragraphs and then flesh it out there. So your overview actually helps you to arrange the main features logically. And you see that I did just that here. Now, I decided to talk about the revenue sources here. It is clear that a significant... Okay, let's just let's just read out the explanation for how your body paragraph should be. So begin to flesh out what you wrote in your overview, as I said earlier, including figures and details this time. Group the features in a logical manner, that is, split them between the two paragraphs. So let's see how I wrote this first body paragraph. It is clear that a significant fraction of their total income was derived from donated food items. In fact, it was approximately 87%, which is over 2/3 of the total annual revenue. The second largest source of finance was the contributions from communities, which made up a little above 10% of the total revenue. You know, they wrote 10.4 and we said a little above 10%. So this is a good way to express that. The remaining sources of funds were aggregately less than 5%. So if you add all these three together, you'd see that it should be giving you something like, it should be giving you a total of, let's say, 3%, you understand? So I just said the remaining sources of funds were aggregately less than 5%, understand? So these are just ways in which you can flesh out what you've already written in your overview. You can clearly see that we added figures. You can give approximate figures. You can give estimate figures, you understand? As long as you use the correct words to express that you're actually estimating them, then that's fine. For the second body paragraph, now that simple sentence we wrote at the end of the overview, you can see how we've now expanded it here. All we said in the body paragraph, in the overview for the second pie chart was just spendings were mostly on program services. And now we're able to flesh it out here. Then went on to say the expenditures of the charity were dedicated to only 3 categories of activity. The highest percentage of expenses was obviously on program services at 95.8%. So I'm giving details here, while the remaining 2.8% and 1.8% were spent on fundraising and management and general respectively. The total sum generated, we left this out in the overview because these figures, we can clearly not mention them there, you understand, in the overview. Remember, your overview should not contain any detail or any figure. So now we can then give the details here. The total sum generated was $53,561,580 dollars, you understand, which was slightly more than the $53,224,804. You can clearly see that the numbers are close. So, and this is just it. This is your report. This is your report. Now let's see the whole of the report together. The 2 pie charts show information on the total funds received and their sources and how they were spent by a children's charity organization in 2016. Overall, a significant portion of the revenue was generated via food donations. A reasonable proportion was raised through community contributions, and a relatively small percentage was gotten from program revenues and others. It is clear that a significant fraction of their total income was derived from donated food items. Or you can even say gifted food items, you understand? Because gifts is similar to a donation. So these are synonyms you can use here. In fact, it was approximately 87%, which was over 2/3 of total annual revenue. The second largest source of finance was the contributions from communities, which made up a little above 10% of the total revenue. The remaining sources of income were less than 5%, and so on and so forth. So you'd see that at the end of the day, when you count all the words here, you see that it will give you a total of 180 words. Now, this is perfect. This is perfect because anything between 150 to 200 words is very fine. You understand? Anything above 200 is anything overly above 200, you understand, it becomes too much writing and unnecessary because it might cause you to exceed your 20 minutes. And you know, in the writing test, they'll just give you an hour and you'll be the one to use your discretion to split your time between the 2 tasks. You have to stop writing at the end of 1 hour. So you want to use the 1 hour to your best. You just need to be wise. If you know you're going to begin with this, then make sure you finish up within 20 minutes so you have enough time for essay. If you're going to begin with the essay, make sure you finish up within 40 minutes so you have 20 minutes for your report writing. So remember what I said. If you follow this formula strategy that I've explained here, you should be getting an average of 170 to 180 words or even 160, and that is fine because the minimum is 150. And guys, please, when you start practicing, if you notice that what you wrote was less than 150, make an effort to add more information that would give you a minimum of at least 150. You understand? Don't just settle for anything less than 150 because if you write anything less than 150 on the test day, it's going to affect your scores negatively. So you need to know how to write at least 150 words. Now, let's go on. You know, we did pie charts in the first sample. Now, let's go ahead to do something different. You see that we have the table here, and it's talking about secondary school attendance. So we initially explained this strategy and formula on how to write a writing task one with pie charts. Then we are now moving on to like using a table to further explain this formula. This formula and strategy that I taught in the first sample, and which I'm going to teach here again, it's applicable to any type of diagram you see. Is it to describe, report a process, to describe a process, to report information on a map or pie chart or line graph, whatever it is, a bar chart, whatever it is, you can actually apply this formula to it. You can apply it to them. Understand? Now, let's look at it again. The secondary school attendance in 3 years, 2000, 2005, 2009. We can see 4 schools: specialist schools, grammar school, voluntary controlled schools, community schools. We can see that information is given in percentages. And then it says here, the table shows the proportion of pupils attending 4 secondary school types between 2000 and, there's an error here, between 2000 and 2009. Summarize information, selecting and reporting main features, make comparisons where relevant. Now let's go on to write the introduction. Introduction is just rewriting of the title that is given. The table illustrates. Remember I said you can use gives, information, illustrate, or shows. Here I'm using illustrates. The table illustrates the percentage of student attendance in 4 types of secondary schools in the years 2000, 2005, and 2009 respectively. So we are able to mention all 3 years. Instead of saying between, we decided to mention all 3 years. Now we are not mentioning all the schools because it's going to make our introduction very long, and that's quite unnecessary. Now, before we go on, let us study the information here. The information clearly tells us that if you look at it closely, you see that all 3 schools experienced decline in attendance. They experienced a decline. That of specialist school is more like a gradual decline, not very significant. Grammar schools was more obvious with the grammar schools. Decline is obvious here. And then this decline is drastic. Decline of attendance is quite drastic in the voluntary controlled schools. Is quite drastic, from 52% down to 20%. Now, community schools shows quite the opposite. Community schools are the only schools that recorded increase in attendance. So now we can clearly see the obvious trends here. We can see that some schools experienced increase, while a particular school, some schools experienced decline in attendance, while a particular type of school reported increase or rise in attendance. So this is our understanding of the map. So we've succeeded in writing our our introduction, which was derived from the title. Now let's go on to write the overview. From our understanding of what we can see in the graph, in the table, we can clearly tell how our overview should be. Remember I said you must begin with this word overall. Please, there's no debating this. Don't even debate it. Don't say that you saw some other word, another linking word. Please, this is IELTS and this is the standard. When you want to begin your overview, begin with this word overall. So overall, all the schools experienced a steady decline in school children attendance over the years, except for the community schools, which reported a remarkable growth in the registration of new pupils. So I decided to use registration of new pupils instead of repeating the word attendance here, which is fine. Now, let's go on to the 2 body paragraphs. Our overview is already going to be a guide to us. Our overview is a guide to us, and we're going to work with it. Now, because we need to add details, and they've given us 3 years, we can decide to begin with a particular year. Now, for you, there are many ways to write this particular question. There are many ways to write it, but I've chosen to structure my ideas in this way, and I think it's a logical way to do it. In the year 2000, voluntary controlled schools had the highest rate of students in attendance at 52%, compared to the grammar school, which had a 24% rate, which is a little below the half of the former. When you divide this 52 into 2, it should give you something around 26, yes, she give you 26%. So the rate 24% is a little below 26%. So that's what I was referring to here. The specialist and community schools had similar pupil attendance levels at 12% each. We're referring to community schools here and specialist schools. You know that they said summarize information, selecting and reporting main features, and make comparisons very relevant. So we've compared, what we've done here is to compare attendance levels in the year 2000. Now, our second body paragraph can now be dedicated to showing the decline and increase that we talked about in the overview. From the year 2005 to 2009, the specialist grammar and voluntary secondary school all indicated a gradual drop in school children's sign-ups. The grammar school rate of attendance fell from 19 to 12%, a 7% decline compared to a more significant 18% reduction in the case of voluntary controlled schools. You can see that here we have 19 and 12, so there's a 7% gap, and here 38 and 20, there's an 18% gap. So that's what we did. We compared the rate at which they fell. Conversely, now I want to talk about community schools because their case was quite different from the other three. So say conversely, or you can even use the linking word in contrast. In contrast, community schools enjoyed a rapid rise from 32% to 58%. Remember, we began with from the year 2005 to 2009. So we know that everything we are talking about in this paragraph is referring to these two columns. We've talked about this first column in the first body paragraph. Now, all we're talking about in the second body paragraph is 2005 and 2009. So, guys, this is how it works for your report writing. Very simple and straight to the point. And a secret to passing the test is exposing yourself to many questions, because there are actually many types of questions. As in, if I'm to do slides on all the different types of report writing, these slides will get to probably 100. So I decided to limit it to these two, just to give you the foundation, the basics. If you've mastered these basics, these strategies, just understand what I've explained through these two tasks. If you understand it, practice with it, you surely get better while you practice. Then I would want to give you this task. Also, do a research on Google on linking words that you can use in your IELTS writing, in your essay and in your report writing. Check for linking words. Please, you have to indicate that, okay, you are searching for linking words. IELTS academic writing task 1, linking words. Please research on that. In particular, type IELTS academic task 1, linking words. Just search for that and you'll see a number of articles or videos that share information on different types of linking words that you can use in your academic writing task 1. Now, this is a summary of the whole, this is like the whole reports, from the introduction, the overview, the 2 body paragraph, and we have a total of 162 words. And this is very fine. This is so good. So you notice that we did not talk about every single thing per se. And that is how it should be. You shouldn't be talking about all the information that you can see. Talk about the obvious things that you can clearly see. So I'll be giving you some assignments. And with these assignments, you can easily go on to practice. Or even with the ebook that's been given to you, you can see websites or links that I put out there where you can practice academic task 1 questions. So you can go ahead to that and those sites and practice many questions as much as you want to, because the more you expose yourself, the better for you. It becomes so easy for you to write. So guys, thanks for joining me in today's class. I'll see you in our next class, and I'm wishing you success in your test. Bye-bye.